Hello everyone, happy Monday. Last weekend, Australia just had a federal election with a new government being elected. So in here, I would like just to say to all my viewers from Australia as a voter in that country, just please ask yourself, have I voted? Have I voted for the good parties? For the right parties? And have I voted in a manner that's responsible for my country and for which of my children and for the generations to come, and also responsible for my neighbors, especially those who may escape from the cruelty or dictatorship in other continents. It came all the way to Australia. Because I was among those people, I came to Australia first because, it was a formerly British colony, colonized by the British, and that's a country of the Christian roots. That's what Australia attracted me at the first place for a foreigner. And also, have you voted to prevent Australia from slipping again into the irrational fear and irrational policy restrictions over a minor disease like COVID? So these are the questions. Speaking of, in today's video, I would once again look at some data. I think I might want to do a video like this on a weekly basis, perhaps once a week, just to look at the COVID situations and review COVID policies in Beijing in general, rather than looking at or sharing some particular footage of what's going on. So sometimes it's good to just look at some numbers. But before we actually look at my spreadsheet, as you may be able to see, if you compare with my last video of the same kind, I have done a lot of changes to my spreadsheet. I have added one more chart, a couple of more tables, and also have updated my chart, and also added a couple of columns to the tables of daily cases. Let's call this sample, and this is in comparison with the yearly estimation. So sample and the estimation. So that's what I mainly do in this spreadsheet. So I will explain later. But before that, let's just briefly, let me show you my data source. So that's a website I mentioned before, and that's the official website of Beijing Municipal Health Commission, which is the health department of Beijing's local government. This is where I got most of the data I use in my spreadsheet. So as you can see, on each day, usually between the press conference, usually I think they are at 3 in the afternoon every day. So in between them, they would publish 3 documents. So let's see, that's documents number 1, number 2, and number 3. So let's look at number 1. So the first document, this is about the number of cases being reported just on each natural day. Usually they publish this document at 8 in the morning. So that's where I've got nearly, the major data here. In these 2 columns, asymptomatic number and the asymptomatic numbers of cases, and also the number of people being discharged from hospital. However, this column has been rarely used. So far, I haven't really used the number of people being discharged from hospital because we don't really know if these numbers are relevant to the COVID positive cases being reported in this period. For instance, the 3 people being discharged from hospital on the 22nd of April. These 3 are highly unlikely to be of these 6 people being reported COVID positive, right? Usually they wouldn't be discharged on the same day as being reported or test positive. So I just put the column here for the time being. I may use this later, but so far I haven't really used this discharge, the number of discharged people. But anyway, the 2 very important ones are from this table are symptomatic and asymptomatic numbers of cases. But before the 12th of May, they also included the severity data in this document. But after that, they removed that data. I don't know why. But after the 12th, I have to acquire the data or the information on severity from document number 3 from this document. However, I believe this document is mostly about the number of cases being reported in between news conferences or press conferences instead of on each natural day. So the numbers are slightly different. However, we can still see that there are 1 severe case, 16 medium cases, and 66 light cases being reported in between, I believe, the 2 conferences, one on yesterday, 22nd, and one on the day before, 21st. So that's where I got these two numbers here. However, if we calculate based on these 2 numbers, the number of light cases would be 68 rather than 66 on this document. So I believe the time measurements are a little bit different for these 2 documents, but that's so far what I got. But again, if if you are better with interpreting this document, please let me know. But that's so far what how I can understand them, and also they're pretty easy actually. Just look at the titles on each day, so you can already get the numbers, and the details are just details. Also, so finally, that's the second document published on each day, which is mostly about the adjustment of the levels of lockdown in all the particular areas, which is not really used for my purpose. So anyway, as you can see, what I've done to this table is that I added the information on symptom severity for each day. If you look at my last video, the last version I got, in this table pretty much just 1 column for total daily cases and 1 rate of infection each day, I believe. But for this version, I added symptom severity, just like I promised. and just two more data on people being discharged from hospital and the death toll. But the death toll is so far is 0, so it's not really used. But just put it there for the time being. Also, based on this, maybe I'll just slowly scroll down so you can just have a look. I won't read all the numbers, but you can just look at them if you pause. Okay, so that's what I've got so far until yesterday. And I also have updated my my chart. This chart. This is reference lines to show the maximum number of daily cases. Which yesterday we just had a new high, a new maximum. 99 cases per day has been reported on yesterday, and the trend line on bottom, on the top. This shows the trend of total cases, and the green bars are the symptomatic cases, which is the so far usually the majority of each day, and the green bars are asymptomatic. Those are the cases without any symptoms, with a separate trend line. So as you can see, the trend of asymptomatic is usually different from the trend of the total cases, but the trend of symptomatic cases are usually aligned with the trend, just a little bit lower, but with the same shape. So that's for the chart number 2. Let's move up a little bit to look at the sample statistics. So that's the statistics of the table at the bottom, so which shows the daily cases. So these are the statistics of the sampled range. So as we can see, today is the 29th day into lockdown, and so far there have been around 1,600 cases being reported on both on during the period of lockdown, also on the 3 days before lockdown, which is from 22nd to 24th of April. So that's the total number of cases. Symptomatic, asymptomatic, light, medium, severe, and people being discharged from hospital, which is, as I mentioned before, this number is not really used so far. And also, that's the average daily cases, which is not really used because I don't really think average can always represent the actual situation. So as for the yearly estimation, as I also mentioned in the last video, I didn't really use the average daily cases multiplied by how many days are there in a year. Rather, I used the sample total multiplied by with how many ranges, how many sampled ranges are there in a year, by having the total numbers of days in a year, which is usually 365, divided by how many days being sampled, or how many entries are there in the bottom table. So that's how I calculate the yearly estimation. But before that, let's just briefly look at this chart number 1 as well. This is the chart based on sample data, but divided cases, the total number of cases into different levels of severity. So the blue one, which is very large slice in the pie chart, that's asymptomatic. That's the people without any symptoms. and the even larger slice is not really a slice, more like nearly the whole pie. The green one are people with light symptoms, and the gray one is the medium symptoms, smaller, and even the smaller one is very thin, very small, barely visible slice in the pie chart. That's the severe case, which only makes up 0.13% of all cases. So I guess we can see this percentage is very small, and so that's for this chart based on this table. And also added a comparison, which are the data on influenza reported by World Health Organization or WHO or WHO. That's the yearly global data of influenza in adults. So I would like to have the data particularly for Beijing on influenza, but so far they are not available. But if you know where you can acquire such data, please let me know. Or if you have some ways to acquire those data, just to make sure that they are official data, because I only use official data here. Official data and official policies. So I'm not here to talk about speculations. I'm only here to talk about the official data that I can acquire in public channels, same as pretty much everyone else, but I just do my analysis. Let's look at this influenza data later, but firstly, let's just look at the yearly estimation of COVID first, and let's do some comparisons as we go. So that is the total number of cases that would be in a year if the current trend of COVID infection goes on in a year. So this is how many people would be COVID positive in a year if the situation goes on. So that's around let's say 19,000 of people, and that's the infection rate divided with this total number of cases divided by the population of Beijing. So that's the infection rate. However, let's look at the infection rate of influenza. The minimum rate reported by WHO is 5%. So that's the minimum rate, and that's what I calculated how many cases there would be in a year globally. This is calculated by to have this rate multiplied by the total population of the world reported by World Population Review website. So approximately, that's how many people will be sick with influenza every year, and that's the rate. However, as we can see, the infection rate of COVID, especially the Omicron variant, which is said to be highly infectious, but the infection rate is nonetheless way lower than influenza, at least according to the official data reported by Beijing government. So that's the symptomatic rate, asymptomatic rate. Those rates are actually non-existent for influenza data, so you won't actually to have people talk about asymptomatic flu very often. I don't think. I have never heard of people just saying, you've got flu, but you don't have any symptoms. but you're just sick. You're flu positive or something. But we constantly talk about asymptomatic COVID cases for some reason. Those people are not sick, but for some reason they're considered as patients. So finally, not really finally, and there's more here. The severe illnesses. The rate of severe illnesses, according to the sample data in Beijing, the rate would be 0.13%, as I mentioned before. But the same rate for influenza, the minimum rate is 0.4. So how I got this minimum rate? I used the minimum number of severe illnesses reported by WHO divided by the maximum possible total number of cases. So that's how I get the minimum possible rate of severe illness for influenza. And for the maximum, I used the maximum number of severe cases divided by the minimum number of total cases. That's how I got the maximum possible rate of severe illnesses. So just look at the minimum number of severe illnesses rate, which for influenza is 0.4%. But even for COVID, it's 0.13, still lower, and it's way lower than the maximum rate for influenza. It's way lower than that. Also considering there will be less people being actually infected with COVID, so the people actually got severely ill from COVID will be much less. And finally, the death rate. So far, there have been no deaths being reported in Beijing, so the death rate is 0, which that's the case so far. Okay, so that's all about my updates and what I've got so far in this spreadsheet. And for the next part, I would like just to briefly talk about the COVID policies nowadays in Beijing, give you an update. So pretty much from the 18th of May onwards, all the microrayons in my area, including mine, have their lockdown lifted pretty much, or quote-unquote lifted, because even with the lockdown being lifted, we are still required to present a permit to leave our microrayons legally. So recently I have acquired a photo of the permit. That little piece of paper is what you need so far to actually leave your microrayon if you want to go out for a walk or just to go to work. I don't think the church is open, so you can't really go to the church. But if you want to go to pretty much anywhere outside of microrayon, you need this permit. Just basically a little piece of paper shows your name, your I believe that's the number of the permit, and that's the number of you, or your ID number, and your phone number, your address, and that's the I believe the phone number of your microrayon. And here it says this permit is effective permanently so far. Keep it safe after claiming it. Do not throw this away. So this photo is taken on the 18th, the day when lockdown's been quote-unquote lifted. So with the lockdown lifted, I would say actually Beijing has entered into formally into a new norm, in which people, they pretty much need to have a COVID test every other day, and they are still mass testing every day in my microrayon. People are still lining up in whatever weather conditions are there, or there are still people lining up, because today, if you want to go to pretty much anywhere, go to shopping center, if you want to take public transport, you need a negative result, either within 48 hours or within 7 days, depends on the category of the venue you are trying to enter. So in order to do anything, you just need to keep having COVID tests. And I have heard in some microrayons and some venues, they are now using the digital or electronic kind of permit, which can check your let's just say COVID testing so-called situation status online. So there's nowhere you can run to if you haven't had your COVID test properly. So that's the reality of people nowadays living in Beijing. So, but again, as I just put in this spreadsheet, COVID is much lighter a disease compared with influenza, according to official data released by Beijing's government. It's much lighter, even than influenza. So I wonder what's the rationale, what's the reason, or is this just totally irrational and unreasonable to have all these restrictions? So now let us pray, let's hope that countries like Australia and maybe America would not slip again into such irrational policies or irrational restrictions with the new government in Australia, maybe. But who knows what the world will go from this point. Are we really able to move away from the irrational fear, or we'll just repeat 2020 and 2021, repeat the irrational policies of China even nowadays? We will do that. We will, as humanity, can we actually move on to somewhere better? So that's that's something we can hope for. That's something we can sit there and see. Again, thank you for watching my video. Hopefully this video has been worthwhile for you. If you disagree with my methodology, with my analysis, please feel free to argue, leave a comment. If you think, if you agree, if you think my video is worthwhile, please give a thumb up. Again, just hopefully this is helpful. I just hope this is helpful in some ways. You have a good one. Bye.